welcome to the garden. Well, this time of year is really exciting because there are all sorts of new crops that are available now to harvest, and that's fantastic. So we've been taking lots of salad and spring onions, that kind of thing, for quite a long time already. But now there's all sorts of stuff available. We've got broad beans, we'll soon have the peas. Won't be long until we can pick some beetroot. So I thought I'd just have a quick spin around at some of the things we can harvest already. And one of those that I'm going to take today is the calabrese. Now, I'm growing this variety called Ramoso or something like that. I should have checked that before filming. And I understand that that produces fairly small heads to start with, maybe up to 10 centimeters, 4 inches across. And after that, you get tons of side branches. That word really means branching or branched in Italian, so that gives you some idea of what to expect. Now, ours have produced rather small heads, to be fair. One of them is getting on for, I don't know, it's probably about 8 centimeters across. The other two are a little bit smaller, but they're definitely at the point where I need to cut them. Otherwise, flowers are going to open and that will ruin them. So I'm going to cut, I think, 3 of those heads now, and then we're going to get an abundance of side shoots. So you can see the main head here. It's not very impressive, let's be honest, but I'm sure that's going to be delicious. And then around there, we've got all of these smaller side shoots starting. So I don't want to cut this too far down. I think I'll take that there. Wow, this stem is incredibly tender. I mean, I know this is a sharp knife, but even so, that's going to be quite delicious, I think. And I've got another one on this one here. This one's rather smaller. And I've got a third, if I can get to it. I've never sown this particular sort before, so I didn't know what size heads to expect, but it's also quite common from a really early sowing to get, I think, a fairly small head. It's not a bad time actually to be kicking off some new ones, and I will probably do that. I also need to sow a second batch of the sprouting broccoli, because the variety I've grown here, Rudolph, is so early that I expect these will come later this year and not make it into next year. So if I want some to pick in the spring, or the early spring or late winter, then I think I'm going to have to kick off a second batch fairly soon. But anyway, there's a little taste of the broccoli there. So with the recent change in the weather, our chard is now starting to grow away, and these look good actually. I mean, I quite like them when there are large leaves with good sized ribs. So I can let these grow on a bit, but I think I will probably start picking some of this, perhaps even this week. It really is one of my favorite green vegetables, so can't wait to get stuck into that. Here's some of the peas. This is Hurst green shaft, and well, Hurst always produces plenty of peas. They usually appear in pairs like this, good sized pods, and it's not going to be too long before these are ready. A couple of weeks, I would have thought. They're just starting to swell now. And here we've got Prince Albert. Those are just starting to fill out, and the purple podded, that will probably be the first one, and there are small peas in there already. And well, the purple podded is such a such an attractive plant. The flowers are absolutely gorgeous, and so are the pods, and the peas inside are green. And well, it's probably not the finest tasting of peas, but it is a very pretty one. Well, my alderman peas here, they have taken an absolute pounding. Several storms have been through and battered them, broken stems, and generally trashed them. But they're doing pretty well. I mean, this is getting on for, I don't know, it's a good 7 feet tall now up the top here, and they are still going. They are producing pods from basically pretty low down all the way up here, good, and they will be good sized pods. Plenty of peas in those. What have I got there? 3, 6, 9. Wow, about 11 peas in this pod. So they're going to be good sized pods. This is a great performing pea, and it should crop over quite a long period. Now, there are no fat pods on this yet. 1 or 2 of them are just starting to swell, and there's tons more flowers on these. So despite their pretty rough treatment through the spring, they're now performing pretty well. I've had to strap them up in a sort of ad hoc way with bits of string to try and keep it together, but now we're going to get some really good peas off of these. So I am so pleased to see that. Yeah, and we should get a really good crop. I found a bumblebee nest in one of our compost bins, so we've stopped using that compost bin. A bumblebee nest is no problem. At most we'll get a few hundred bumblebees. They don't cause any bother, and the nest will die out later in the year naturally, so then I can deal with the compost bin. So we're just leaving that alone, but it does mean I've got an army of bumblebees here, and they are pollinating everything that needs pollinating. So the peas and the broad beans are really getting worked over, and that's fantastic. Talking of broad beans, well, we are working our way through this first batch now. These are the overwintered broad beans, and well, at one point I thought about grubbing these out. These had such ferocious treatment. A storm came through, ripped off the fleece that was covering them, decapitated them. They've had damage from the wind and the cold, and yeah, at one point they looked so bad I thought about digging them out, but I left them in and they have gone completely nuts. I mean, they're not great looking plants now, but they're cropping, so it's not a problem. There's chocolate spot, some of these leaves are wilting in the heat. They're not really happy anymore, but they will hang on until their crop has been produced, and these are great beans. We've already had a ton off of these plants. And then we've got the spring sowings to follow. So we've got lots of the dwarf bean, the Sutton, and then we've got some masterpiece. We've got whatever is masquerading as a crimson flowered broad bean. There are no crimson flowers on it, so I've got no idea what variety it really is, but we should have a fantastic crop of broad beans this year. The young courgette plants are doing quite well now. We've already taken a small harvest, but we've got, wow, about 4 fruits coming on this one and several more on the neighbouring plant. So I'm sure we're going to get a regular harvest from these at least once or twice a week now. So here's something else we've been tackling already. This is dwarf green curled kale. Actually this year it's not particularly dwarf. This is growing quite vigorously, and you can see we've already started picking the lower leaves, and these are great. We've got half a dozen plants in here, and I harvested a huge bunch of kale from 2 of these, and so we'll work our way round bit by bit, and by the time we've got back to these, well, I could probably take another four big branches of kale off of these plants again, and they're just fantastic. You just keep picking it and the centre keeps on growing, and these are doing really well this year. I'm very pleased with those. Just put the net back, keep the pests away. At the moment the pigeons, but I dare say it will not be long before the garden is full of cabbage white butterflies. We've already taken one of the pointy cabbages here. These are so highly variable. It's really funny. I mean, they're at completely different stages, different stature. This is Wheeler's Imperial, and I mean, this is about as highly a variable set of cabbages as you could get. As I said, one was already taken. One over in the corner is quite short, but appears to have a really nicely packed, tight head. That's going to be good for coleslaw. Then we've got this leafy one in the corner here, just starting to heart up. This one could be taken at any point, but I think it's probably good to leave that for a few weeks yet. So in the middle we've got the Portuguese kale, and I haven't grown that one before, so I'm quite interested to see how it does. I've taken about a dozen leaves off of them, and they are absolutely huge and quite delicious actually. So it's getting a bit swamped in there, but it's still producing good leaves, so I think it will be okay. In the cold frame we've got the spring onions and beetroot. Now we've been working our way through these spring onions. As you can see, there's plenty of thickness to them now, and they're great. They're going to keep going for a while. And well, I could take some beetroot this week, I think. These young ones are going to be absolutely delicious. Well, there's a good size root in here. So yeah, I'm going to twist out the largest ones. I can harvest those later in the week. And here we've got some strawberries. These have been cropping for a couple of weeks already, and they're giving us a surprising amount of fruit. And of course, June is the perfect time for the strawberry crop. And these are absolutely delicious. I'm not sure what variety it is. It's not what the label said, so it's a bit of a mystery, but whatever it is mighty tasty. We've been working our way through our potatoes. We've had most of the 15-litre pots now, and this will be the next one. You can see the foliage on this is already starting to look a little bit ratty, and that's because these are just about to go over. So they've been flowering for a long time, and I'm pretty sure there's lots of tubers in here. I would have thought I could have harvested some of these, well, at least a few weeks ago. So we're not in a hurry because we've still got 3 or 4 pots of the others to finish. But yeah, these will be next. This is a second early British Queen. And then we've got tons of further potatoes. We've got Pentland Javelin coming as our second batch of first earlies, and then we've got our main crop potatoes. And it looks as though I've got the timing more or less okay this year, so it looks like we're going to get a good succession of these over the next couple of months. These are our overwintering onions. Now, to start with, I had planted some of these quite close together, and I'd been removing alternate onions and just using them as spring onions. But now our spring onions have grown, they're large enough to be used, so I've moved to using those for spring onions. But these, where they've started to bulb up, I'm just taking them as and when I need them already. They're not going to store particularly well, firstly because they're an overwintering onion, and secondly because I've been going around pinching off the flowers. And you can see there's another one there. Now, those that have thrown up a flower spike, and I think it must be, it's probably most of them, if not all of them now. I think pretty much every one of these has bolted this year. I mean, it's quite common, particularly with the overwintering ones, and I'm not concerned about it. They won't keep, but on the other hand, I am working my way through them right now, so it's not a problem. I don't want this stuff in there, bindweed and couch grass. What I do like though are these lettuces. So this is 4 seasons, and here I've got the bloody cos with its characteristic rusty brown splotches, and these are really tasty lettuce. We've had a fantastic crop of salad leaves this year already, lots from the cut and come again sort, but also we're starting to get them from these lovely hearting lettuce. And finally, in the greenhouse, you can see that the basil plants that we put out a couple of weeks ago, they have established themselves really rather well, and it is high time I came through here and pinched them out. So I'm going to get a good crop of basil off of these, and that's going to encourage them to bush out and give me even more. Well, I've done lots of videos of sowing and planting out, pinching out, tying in, pruning and so on. So I thought I would do something slightly different in this one and give a flavour of what is cropping right now in the kitchen garden and what I'm going to be harvesting over the next couple of weeks. And this is a really great time in the garden because all of the work of late winter and spring, most of the things that have been sown and potted on, they're all planted out now. I will have to work on the second batch of crops to fill in the gaps that are going to emerge as I start to harvest. But yeah, it's really great that the garden is starting to be properly productive. Anyway, that is all for this video. Thanks ever so much for watching, and bye for now.